Today I'm at a racetrack just outside of Seattle, which is not exactly where you'd expect to find a truck. But if you know anything about the Rivian R1T, then you know that this is quite a performance truck. And for this next generation Rivian R1 series, the S and the T, they are getting a slew of upgrades, including performance. Let's go ahead and dive right into it. Now, before I get too far, unfortunately, I didn't have nearly as much time with this R1T as I wanted to. So if there are things that I missed or questions you have, feel free to check out the R1S video that's going to be coming live at the same time, because that video may be able to answer that question, as these are very much related. The R1S gets a few more changes, but some of the lineup changes and powertrain changes are going to be the same model to model. A lot of the changes we'll find here in the R1T are not actually going to be seen, but more so felt. We have different batteries and we have different motor combinations. Now, Rivian has brought all of their motor production in-house, so each motor layout is going to be Rivian design. There's a dual motor performance, a tri-motor, and a quad motor, and 3 different battery packs available, ranging from standard LFP to a long range or a max pack that's going to be an NMC chemistry. Now, the difference between dual motor and dual motor performance is going to be the battery available, meaning that the standard LFP battery cannot be a performance model, but the long range or the max pack can be performance updated. That is going to be a software date, and I don't have an exact number, but it should be about $5,000 for that upgrade. Now, at the moment, if you upgrade to the tri-motor, that means it'll come with the max pack, and that option is going to be available pretty much at launch of this new generation. If you want the quad motor, you will have to wait until later this year, but that will also come exclusively with the max pack. If you're keeping up so far, then let's just dive into the numbers. The dual motor is going to come standard with 533 horsepower, about 610 pound-feet of torque, and that's going to get you 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. That 4.5 should be the same between the models, the R1T and the R1S, with maybe slight differentiation. Moving to the dual motor performance means we've upgraded our battery and we click the software package that gives us the full performance, and that means we have 665 horsepower out of those same motors, and the torque is turned up to over 860 pound-feet. That gives our 0 to 60 time about a second less at 3.5. But if that's not enough, don't worry, you can certainly bump up to the tri-motor. The tri-motor and the quad motor are new Rivian designs, and the tri-motor comes with 850 horsepower and just over 1,000 pound-feet of torque. We are now in the sub 3 second 0 to 60 at about 2.9, and if you can wait, because it won't be available upon release, you can go ahead and upgrade to the quad motor max pack, which gives you over 1,000 horsepower and almost 1,200 pound-feet of torque, and importantly for some, a 0 to 60 of 2.5 seconds. The team here at Rivian said they've had somebody as low as 2.43, and we're here at the track, so we'll see what some of those best numbers can get. Along with that architecture overhaul came a feature overhaul, and that's in terms of the advanced driver assist system, because Rivian has gone through the effort to implement components that will be future forward. That means we have sensors, we have cameras, and we have 10x the compute power of the last driver assist system in the vehicle, meaning that Rivian is well on their way to making a hands-free driving system that'll fit most occasions. It won't happen immediately, but if you don't have the components in the vehicle, software isn't going to go ahead and make a whole lot of difference, and Rivian does feel confident now that they have that in place. And for folks who buy an R1S or an R1T, that Autonomy Plus feature will be available for free through the end of 2024. At this point, it sounds like it will not be a subscription model moving forward. It'll be a one-time purchase of a package, and I think a lot of people will be fond of that, but we'll just have to wait and see through the end of 2024 what they decide to do moving forward. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about this front end. And there are very few changes to the front end, and it's not so much in the styling as it is the function. You are going to see the very distinguishable LED light signature that you get for the Rivian, both the R1S and the R1T, but what's changed is going to be within this light housing. We now have a redesign of the lights in here, and these lights, via software update, are going to be able to enable their matrix functions. So you'll be able to drive in the darker areas with your brights on without worrying about anybody else who may be coming across and worrying about blinding them as they go ahead and pass you. Now, I already mentioned that light bar that runs across the front of the vehicle here, but what's changed this year is instead of being one solid piece, it's actually going to be split up into a main light bar above and a segmented bar below. Now, the lights down here are RGB, but their main function, at least for everyday use, is going to be an indicator for the charging level of the vehicle. The way that works is they'll have a green light that runs all the way across, but then each of these bars will light up every 10% the vehicle gets in charge status. Now, folks already familiar with Rivian may know that the yellow accents don't just mean it's part of the logo design, it means it's the performance model, which has historically been the quad motor. So the yellow accents here on the logo and the yellow brake calipers would tell you this is a quad motor Rivian, but they've changed things up just a little bit. The yellow is now going to be the accent for the tri-motor, which is still very much a performance model. But the new quad motor now has a blue accent, so it comes in a much more subtle way. You'll find that on the brake calipers as well as an accent to the emblems throughout the vehicle. And if you get that quad motor, you also get Gear Guard, the mascot of Rivian. And that's going to be, I think, one of the more interesting badges that you'll find on any vehicle is especially for a performance model, is going to be the Gear Guard with his hair blowing in the wind. Now, with that said, obviously with the yellow brake calipers here, that means that this is a tri-motor. But this tri-motor is currently coming with the smallest wheel and tire package available. This is a 20-inch wheel with an all-terrain tire, but this all-terrain tire has been changed from last year's model to be just a little bit more efficient on-road. If you want even more efficiency, there is a 22-inch aero wheel, and that has a cap that you can, of course, pop off, but that is now very much a road-going tire meant to give you absolutely maximum range. And the fact that it's a 22 means you don't necessarily have to sacrifice style, though the 22-inch design may not be exactly what you're looking for. Let me know down in the comment section below. There's been some conversation here about how much people do or don't like it. So far, I think I'm on board, but love to hear your thoughts. If you go ahead and upgrade to the quad motor design, and that means you're getting some of those blue accents and blue brake calipers, then you have the option of a staggered wheel setup. It's a 22-inch wheel, very attractive, and it's going to come with available summer tires. So if that's what you're looking for, it is an option, but just remember those are staggered, so you are going to end up running through your tires a little bit more frequently. But since you bought a performance truck, I assume you considered that in the overall equation. Now, if you've been a fan of the R1T design, which is pretty unique, then good news, there really haven't been any changes. As far as exterior, we've already covered on some of the big ones, things like wheels and tire packages, the lights up front. You may notice that there are going to be an overhaul of cameras, and one of those cameras being right here in the mirror. So we do have an added blind spot system. So you turn on your turn signal, there on the display screen, it'll show you what's in your blind spot. That's definitely a nice upgrade. But that surround view camera is not just more cameras, but a lot more pixels. They said about 8 times more pixel density. So we're able to get a much clearer vision. And if you're using the new Autonomy Plus platform that comes with this Rivian R1T and the R1S, then that means you have about 10 more seconds potentially of reaction time or ability to read ahead. And that's always going to be a good plus. Now, some of the other things that Rivian was known for, especially the truck here, like the gear tunnel, are definitely still in place. And it's just enough weight that I can go ahead and stand up on it without worrying about this falling out underneath me. Now, the storage in here is not enormous, but it's a lot more than you would get in any other truck bed, at least under the bed. So certainly a plus for those who want it. And it's worth mentioning that back here, we do still have the powered tonneau cover. It's one press for the tonneau, one press for the tailgate. Now with this update, Rivian's done a lot more adding than they have done subtracting. And that means that this truck stays just as functional as the last generation. We still have 11,000 pounds of towing capability. We now have 0 to 60 times about 2.5 seconds, but some of the nicer features like an automatic tailgate and the powered cover are still going to be included. This bed design is a little bit unique as well because it has a folding partition, meaning that it really limits how much gap there is between tailgate and bed. So ideally less things fall through, or whatever you're putting in here is just a little bit more stable. Now that's not all the party tricks here for this tailgate. It's really almost just the beginning. Here under the floor, if you release this latch, we can go ahead and lift up the storage area, very Honda Ridgeline-esque, and that includes a full-size spare tire, Whether you want to keep it there or not, if for some reason you didn't want it there or you wanted to relocate it, I'm sure you could do that and use this storage area for just about anything else. But it really also helps with aerodynamics because we no longer have this dangling down from the bottom of the truck, meaning that we have a nice flat floor for airflow, and it's in here. The only challenge you'll run into is if your bed is fully loaded and you need to go ahead and replace the tire. But since I don't plan on doing that very often, I'd rather have it tucked away. Off here on the right side, you are going to find two standard wall outlets. That means that we can get power because this is obviously a giant battery pack. So just about anything you need. For me, it would probably be some warm water in the morning for some tea and maybe a toaster for a toaster strudel. If you want to go a little bit more hardcore than your breakfast pastries, over here on the left side, you'll also find an air pump. So you can go ahead and air up or air down, and it includes the gear guard, which is part of the Rivian system so that you can have items here in the bed locked to the bed of the truck, whether this is open or closed, and that way you can feel a little bit more secure about what you have stored in the back of your pickup. Speaking of unique storage, don't forget we have a power up and power down front trunk that has quite a bit of storage capacity. Here in the interior, this is going to look very much like last year's Rivian with a few minor changes. Now, one of the biggest ones is going to be this strip down here. And this in the lower trims and last year's model was always silver. But now it's going to come in the Ascend package, which is standard on the tri-motor and the quad motor. It's going to be much more of a browny bronze color. And this darker accent or this darker look is also going to be found throughout the exterior, where a lot of them are going to come standard with the blackout package or available with a blackout package. In this door trim, you are going to have a fairly small but well-positioned soft touch area for your elbow. And if you like to rest your arm at the very top of the door panel there is going to be soft touch material as well. Down below here in the door, you'll find the speaker grill, and this speaker grill is part of the upgraded premium audio package that is going to come with a 360-degree spatial audio update. That is going to reach some of the previous Rivians if you do have the upgraded system, but it's a great way to go ahead and get very immersive sound. Now, just off to the right of that, you might notice that that's the little cubby, the storage bin, and it does pull out, but it is now stitched. Where it previously was just plastic, it's now at least a little bit covered. So it's a very soft touch material, and it definitely adds a premium feel. Now, whether or not you think plaid is a luxury touch, I guess I'll leave up to you, but you are going to find a lot of plaid accents here throughout the interior, here in the floor mats, as well as a few Easter egg spots that I'll go ahead and let you find on your own if you do find yourself shopping for a Rivian. Up here in the dashboard, this is going to be a very similar layout to what we found in last year's model, including the lack of a storage bin, but just like the previous generation, we do still have storage down here below the seats, a little cubby there. You'll find one on the driver's seat as well. And if you need more, well, there's a pretty large storage bin, an open storage bin right here in the center, which I'm sure you could put a bag and an organizer if you want, or just a great place to toss your entire purse or backpack. Some of the big design changes are going to be found here in the center screen. So this infotainment screen doesn't change itself drastically. I believe it does get a little bit more compute power, but the biggest change is going to be in the layout and the graphic design. So we now have a cell shaded, powered by Unreal Engine, which for folks who don't know is a game software. You have a 3D model of your truck or your SUV, depending on which model you get. And this design is going to change based on the drive mode that you're in. So right now we are in all purpose, which is basically your standard mode. If you put it in sport mode, not only are there going to be a number of changes happening to the vehicle, but also here in the screen. Snow, you'll have a similar function. And if you get the tri-motor or the quad motor, you will now have an off-road mode or an off-road section that will give you quite a few more options. So all-terrain, rock crawl, rally, soft sand. Go ahead and say I'm in soft sand. Don't worry, I won't go anywhere. And drift. And we'll go ahead and turn off stability just for at least the effect. Now, what you may notice through these animations is that some of them more obvious than others, have animations in and of themselves. So if we look closer here within the shrubbery here, you can see that they're actually gently shifting in the wind. Now, honestly, if I didn't have my navigation on, I would have something just like this. Obviously, the one you'll see the most often is going to be here on the road, but we have a spinning windmill. And honestly, this looks a little bit cartoonish, but not in an immature way. It's just a fun way to represent a vehicle that doesn't seem to take itself too seriously. If you do want to do something a little more serious, like you're off-roading, then you are going to want to take advantage of all of the cameras and the updated cameras. So right here we have our front view and our 360-degree pan. We can also go front or rear, look behind us, and we can change to a side angle where we can see, well, just about anything we want. And unfortunately, there weren't so many places to park, and that porta potty has now made itself known. If you do want to take advantage of the max battery pack and the dual motor and tow, well, obviously you're going to have to stop and charge, and they've made that a little bit more enjoyable. Here in the music menu, very soon you will have a new selection here on the side, and that's going to be native Apple Music. But in the meantime, if you'd prefer to go ahead and watch something, they have also added Chromecast. And that means that whatever subscriptions you have, say your Disney Plus or your Hulu or your Netflix, if they can Chromecast, you can now watch them here on your Rivian. You will need to get the Rivian Premium Connectivity subscription. I don't know exactly the naming on it at the moment, I apologize. But as long as you have that, you will be able to go ahead and Chromecast to your Rivian. If you don't want to sit in the vehicle while it's charging and it's time to take the party elsewhere, don't worry, you can go ahead and remove your portable Bluetooth speaker that comes with the premium audio system. Here in the center console, we have pop-out cup holders that are pretty responsive and adjustable, so you can fit just about whatever you need in here, large or small. We do have an upgraded Qi wireless charging mat. I didn't have any issues charging my phone on here, and that has been a pretty consistent concern with Rivian owners. We also have a storage cubby. It's a clamshell style. It is fairly deep, but not overall enormous in dimension, and there are USB charging ports in there as well. Now, taking a look here at the driver's screen, we're not going to see a whole lot of change. There is a font change that we will see in a software update that makes it back to previous Rivians, but one of the biggest things you'll get is going to be the addition of that blind spot camera. So you can go ahead and double check your blind spot, either over the shoulder or just using the camera here in the driver display screen. If you need to make changes to the vehicle, say things like accessing your gear guard, or you want to lower or adjust the tonneau cover of the vehicle, all of those are going to be here in the menus. You can also change things like your steering wheel and side mirror position. That's going to be done between the steering wheel here and the infotainment screen. But we also have some of the things we've come to expect from Rivian, just like our ability to raise and lower the vehicle, because we do have the standard air suspension. We can adjust our regenerative braking, how sporty, meaning stiff, or soft and pliable the ride feels. And all of this is still designed to go off-road, but as we are at the track and doing 0 to 60 and quarter-mile runs, it's meant to go pretty quick as well. The steering wheel design stays fairly minimalistic. It is a nice shape with a slightly flat bottom, but on the left and the right, you'll see left and right buttons and a scroll wheel that goes up and down and can click. This is going to be how you change a number of features in the vehicle, essentially depending on the screen you're at on the infotainment. Here in the backseat, you'll find more hints of plaid down in the carpets, as well as the pull strings here on the rear seat storage cubbies. In the center here, you have a fold down armrest, which is great, and it features the same bronze accent that we found up front. Little storage cubby there, and all of that will fold back in to give us plenty of room here in the rear seat. It's definitely wider than we find in most mid-size pickups, but a little bit smaller than we find in a full size, and that's really where this sits within the market. Here in the back, you still have controls to be comfortable. That includes things like your outboard heated seat, as well as your dual climate control. Now, this is going to be connected to the front climate, but it will tell you what the certain temperatures are, and you can go ahead and make or request those adjustments from the rear. Also mention basic functions like lock and unlock, and 2 USB-C chargers down below. There are also 2 USB-C chargers in the back headrest here of each of the seats, so one left and one right, and a little hook, which I imagine is great for an aftermarket accessory for putting your iPad instead of having a fixed in place rear entertainment system, one that you can take with you. Whether you love or hate an all-glass roof, it definitely makes for a pretty view, and everybody in the vehicle gets to enjoy it here in the Rivian R1T. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get time to take this R1T out on the road, but I did get to try the R1S with the different powertrains, and I can tell you, you will feel some of that difference. What you won't feel is a lot of the work that's done on the infrastructure and the architecture here for the vehicle, and that's R1S and R1T. See, the first time they made this, it was their first ever vehicle, and there was a lot of things that they wanted to accomplish with a brand new electric truck. So in order to do that, they needed a lot of different modules to operate each individual function. But there's a problem with that because it gets really inefficient. And what they've done is essentially an overhaul, not of the entire program, but of a lot of the operating system, a lot of the hardware. And in doing so, they not only cut down the individual components that they need, but they cut down on the wiring as well. Rivian says they got rid of 1.6 miles of harness, and that equates to about 44 odd pounds of copper throughout the vehicle. That makes it easier to maintain, repair, easier to put into production, simplifies just about everything. And what is important to Rivian is the overall environmental footprint that this vehicle leaves, and in using so much less material, they've gone ahead and decreased the footprint of this car by a pretty fair margin. Let's talk about pricing and availability. If you want a Rivian R1T, you'll start out at $69,900 for the dual motor and standard battery. If you want the dual motor but more range, for some reason maybe not the LFP battery, or you just want more range or potential performance, you can go ahead and upgrade to the long range pack for $76,900. If that's not enough range, then the max pack is available at $83,900 before jumping to the tri-motor, which is a big leap in performance, but also standard with the max pack. That's going to cost $99,900. And that is a pretty significant bump from the long range or the max pack dual motor, but that doesn't include the price of, I'm guessing, about $5,000 for the performance upgrade on those variants. If you say none of those are good enough, you want the quad motor right out the gate, we're gonna have to wait a little bit because it's not gonna be immediately available, hopefully later this year, and we don't have pricing on that one just yet. Considering that the other one stops at $99,900, I'm assuming we're very much going to clear the $100,000 mark, and if I were a betting man, maybe the high 100, not quite 110. That creates a pretty interesting mix of battery sizes and performance, but if your biggest focus is going to be range, just know that the range on this vehicle is going to be anywhere from about 258 miles all the way up to 420 miles, because the second generation Rivian R1T is at the moment, according to Rivian, the most efficient electric pickup on the market today. So that would be obviously your dual motor and your max pack, but 420 miles is a long way to drive. And if you're towing, obviously you're not gonna get a full 420, but there isn't gonna be any other vehicle that's more efficient with the power that you put into it. And really there's nothing on the market that's gonna go notably farther, especially considering the price point. If I get any more details on the breakdown for range between the powertrain and battery options, I will certainly update this video. But until then, just know that range is pretty wide, and it goes from pretty good, especially for a performance truck, to really good as far as efficiency and total range. When a company comes out and says that they've got the next generation coming, people expect some major differences. And this doesn't disappoint in the differences, but the way they've gone about it is in the unsexiest way. And I really appreciate that. Because the fact is, the foundation is what everything is built on. If they just made this look different and threw some different wheels on it, then maybe it's the next generation, but it's all built on a structure that could use some improvement. And this structure has been improved. They brought all of their manufacturing for the motors in-house, so they control just about everything there. They've simplified the manufacturing in terms of all the modules that they use, but they've added functionality, like the increase in advanced driver assist systems and a hands-free promise for down the road. They've also given us an LFP battery with plenty of performance and plenty of range, to my mind, that's a lot more affordable for folks like myself who would not consider spending $100,000 on any vehicle. But the fact that I can get this, which I enjoy, for about $70,000 to start, is a much more appealing proposition. If you have any other thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, leave those down in the comment section. I'm most curious to know what your favorite change here is in the Rivian, or what you would have changed if they gave you the magic wand and said, what should we do different? Thanks so much for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, all those other social sites, and we'll see you in the next one.